Chief of Space Operations, my good friend, General J. Raymond.
Vice President Pence, thank you for your strong leadership and passion for the nation's space enterprise. Secretary Norquist, Secretary Barrett, General Hyten, General Brown, Colonel Walton, I couldn't be more excited to join you here today in just another average day in the United States Space Force. An average day making history, because that's what we're doing each and every day in the United States Space Force. Today, we are standing on hallowed ground. The history that resonates from the launch pads is palpable. Just 2 miles from here is where America entered the space race on 31 January 1958 with the launch of our first satellite, Explorer 1. Since that time, civilian, commercial, and military space professionals have put our brave astronauts, countless satellites, and years of hard work on top of a rocket, lit its engine, propelling those objects into space at 17,500 miles an hour. I've been in the space launch business for years, and I can tell you there's nothing that beats launch day. But it only marks the beginning of a mission. So today, we start a new era at both Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and Patrick Space Force Base, aligning the installation's names with their critical missions. As we come up on the Space Force's first birthday, like a launch, this is only the beginning of a new chapter. I'm excited to see the history yet to be made by the sharks of the 45th Space Wing. Y'all look really sharp today. Thanks for being here. Placing into orbit critical space capabilities that underpin our quest for exploration and discovery, our way of life, and our national security. Colonel Walton, to you and your team, you make it look easy, and we all know it's not. Welcome to your new home. Our name is now on the mailbox, and I know you will continue to make us proud. It is now my honor, my distinct honor, to introduce a good friend and a space giant in his own right, our Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General John Hyten.
Wow, it is good to be in Florida. Not that I don't love being in the Pentagon, but somehow being at the Cape is just a whole lot better than being in the Pentagon. Mr. Vice President, you do us great honor by being here today. And I want to thank you very much for everything that you've done to move space forward in this country. Secretary Norquist, Secretary Barrett, General Raymond, General Brown, Colonel Walton, thank you for your steady leadership and continued service. I'm excited for this moment. I'm excited for this day. I'm excited to be here, and thank to everybody that's here, the men and women of the 45th. It's an honor to be with you today. Little over 63 years ago, in 1957, General Bernard Schriever, the father of Air Force Space and Missiles, said, "Our safety as a nation may depend on our achieving space superiority. Space superiority may be more important than air superiority in the battles of the future." He said this at a time when the total population of the space catalog was 0. It was before Sputnik launched, 8 months before Sputnik, but he understood the importance of our space to our warfighting future. And a little over 53 years ago, in 1967, my family came here to the Cape for the first time when my dad helped build out the infrastructure for the Saturn V on Pad 39A, a big part of our response to the great power competition that was going on with the Soviet Union, and it was an exciting time. And this is an exciting time. Once again, we're challenged with great power competition, and once again, we're responding. And we're now approaching the first birthday of the United States Space Force and redesignating Cape Canaveral and Patrick Air Force Base. And it's a special moment that will be added to the list of significant milestones as we move to the future. The first Space Force base is here on the Space Coast. Our Space Force is charged with protecting the people and ideals of the United States. And we must be able to protect and defend ourselves in space. We must be able to protect the dreams of our fellow Americans and all who wish to explore this final frontier. The Space Force is a pathfinder and protector of America's interests as a spacefaring nation, enabling the joint force and its effectiveness. The unwavering spirit of our Space Force is an inspiration, and I laud their efforts, and I wish I could start it all over again. This is a great day. Now, I'd like to introduce and recognize a remarkable leader, the 25th Secretary of the Air Force, Secretary Barbara Barrett. We should all thank her for her incredible efforts in moving this enterprise forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Barbara Barrett.
Thank you, General Hyten. It is fitting that historic Cape Canaveral and neighboring Patrick Air Force Base make history again today. This scene reminds us that the building blocks of our future lie not only in our grand dreams, but also in our humble accomplishments, those humble accomplishments of unheralded men and women, often unseen and unnoticed until they transform humanity. Sir Isaac Newton asked, what force draws two masses toward one another? And he spawned whole new branches of mathematics and engineering. And then Albert Einstein thought about Newton's math. While sitting at his humble desk at the patent office, Einstein pondered, what happens if I shave my whiskers in front of a mirror while moving at light speed? He launched the atomic age. When Neil Armstrong chose his words, that's one small step, did he recognize that crowning achievements of humanity rarely come in standalone grand leaps? But instead, they come from small steps, one after another, barely noticed as they are made. Small steps made by as yet unknown people. Now we are embarked on a new journey. Many small steps lie ahead. The sum of what started here and was reborn in the last 4 years lays the foundation of our giant leaps in space. Back to the moon, the planets, and like Voyager 1 and 2, further still. At the Space Force, our grand mission is to keep humanity safe. Safe for all those who've made those small steps thus far, and all those steps yet untrod. When President Trump signed the United States Space Force into being, he opened a new era of the ultimate high ground. And Vice President Pence, no one has championed space and the Space Force more than you, and our nation owes you a huge debt of gratitude. Another ardent advocate of this Space Force is Deputy Secretary David Norquist, who links each step of the Space Force to the National Defense Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Norquist.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for inviting us to join you for this ceremony. It is an honor to be here with you, Secretary Barrett, General Brown, General Hyten, General Raymond, and Colonel Walton for today's unveiling. Our nation cherishes its history. We scrutinize mistakes, celebrate successes, and value the lessons we learn. While our past strengthens us, what defines our nation is how we look ahead. We innovate by nature and anticipate based on our experiences, qualities that have made our science and technology sector top-notch. They are why we are prepared to address any challenge. The National Defense Strategy is an excellent example of how we lean forward to face future challenges. Our strategy recognizes the rapidly changing nature of warfare. Deterring the high-end fight requires us to be ready to adapt while staying one step ahead of the problem. During World Wars I and II, war moved from land and sea to include undersea and air. Today, our battle space has expanded again. Recognizing that future conflicts will include the cyber and space domain, we elevated U.S. Cyber Command. In order to stay prepared, we knew it was imperative to enhance our posture in space as well. We took a bold leap into space when we created the U.S. Space Force, the first new military service in over 70 years. Establishing the Space Force gave the space mission a heightened level of attention and the resources needed for great power competition. It shows us where we need to go as we develop the capabilities suited for space as a warfighting domain. In under 1 year, we have made tremendous progress. I look forward to sharing these developments with you shortly at the National Space Council meeting. In conclusion, I want to thank President Trump for his vision and thank Congress for their support of this vital endeavor. Mr. Vice President, you have been instrumental in the effort to stand up the Space Force. I greatly appreciate your leadership, which has enabled the United States to remain a global leader in space. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce the Vice President of the United States.
Well, thank you, Deputy Secretary David Norquist, for those gracious words. And I want to thank the Secretary of the Air Force, Barbara Barrett, General John Hyten, General C.Q. Brown, General J. Raymond, and Colonel Brandy Walton for their stirring words today, but more importantly, for their consistent service to this nation and for their leadership in space that will make the American people and our freedom more secure for generations to come. Join me in thanking all of those who've just spoken today. And it's great to be here with all of you, the men and women of the 45th Space Wing. Thank you for your service. And thank you for being pioneers in a new branch of the United States military. You are setting the pace, and I assure you that we're all proud. We're all proud of the standards that you're setting in the early days of this new branch of the service. And before I begin, allow me to bring greetings and admiration as well from your Commander-in-Chief, a great champion of the men and women of the 45th Space Wing and all of those who serve in the uniform of the United States, and also the founder of the United States Space Force. I bring greetings from President Donald Trump. Before I begin and we make history, which General Raymond said is pretty much what you do in the Space Force every day, I wanted to mention an extraordinary American who's been on the hearts of people all across this country over this past week. Monday night, America said goodbye to one of the greatest heroes in the history of American aviation, General Chuck Yeager. General Yeager was a man with the right stuff, came from a humble background, became a war hero, shot down 13 times by Nazi aircraft, he shot down 13 Nazi aircraft, thank you, was himself shot down as well. He flew more than 150 military planes, a total of more than 10,000 hours, in 2 different wars. He broke the sound barrier, and he set an extraordinary standard of heroism to American aviators that would follow ever since. We mark his passing this week at 97 years of age, still with a sense of national loss. And as I spoke to the President this morning about the dedication of these 2 installations, he directed me to begin immediately to identify future Space Force bases that can be renamed in the honor of the service and character and leadership of General Chuck Yeager, and so we will do. America will never forget or fail to honor the pioneering spirit and the heroism of General Chuck Yeager. You know, from the first days of this administration, President Trump called for Americans' renewed leadership in space. It was in June of 2018 that our president first called for the establishment of a new military service focused solely on threats in and from space. The idea was not a new one. For some 50 years, successive administrations and military leaders had discussed a new branch of our military dedicated to ensuring national security in space, but time and again, those efforts went by the wayside. I submit to you, for all the kind remarks made for your Vice President from this podium today, it is a tribute to the leadership of President Donald Trump that just a year and a half after he called for the Space Force, he signed the Space Force into law, creating the first new branch of the American military in more than 70 years. And as the Deputy Secretary of Defense and General Brown just reflected moments ago, since the advent of the Space Force, this new branch of our service has grown stronger each and every day. And that means America is growing more secure each and every day, thanks to those of you that are serving in the Space Force. In fact, I wanted to single out someone that's made an extraordinary difference. I know the Deputy Secretary, the Secretary of the Air Force, General Hyten, and General Brown would agree with me that this nation, just 1 year on from the establishment of the Space Force, owes a debt of gratitude to the man that I routinely call the Hap Arnold of our time. Join me in thanking the Chief of Space Operations of the United States Space Force, General J. Raymond. Thank you for your leadership, General. This spring, Secretary Barrett and I had the great privilege of attending the graduation at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado. It was an inspiring moment. Those cadets had gone through a challenging time, as every American has in this past year. But we were also there when I was told that in a typical year, roughly 20 cadets choose to go into space operations, but this year, 86 cadets stepped forward and were commissioned as officers in the first class of the United States Space Force. And it was my honor to be there, as I know it was yours, Secretary. And I don't have to tell those of you in uniform, our progress in space security is more important than ever. Because as you all know here on the Space Coast, the United States faces emerging competition and emerging threats in space. Countries like China and Russia. And those threats are only growing each day. Space is a vacuum. But America is not operating in a vacuum as we exercise a leadership for our security and for our highest ideals of freedom in the outer expanse of space. The space race that began in the 1950s right here on the Space Coast continues to this very hour. We're in the lead, but we're not alone. The United States will never seek conflict. We will always seek peace through strength. But as I've observed in tabletop exercises and in briefings with all the distinguished military leaders gathered here today, we must recognize, as our President has, that space itself represents a warfighting domain. And we will be prepared to defend our nation and defend our freedom in space with the United States Space Force. So on behalf of your Commander-in-Chief, I just urge all of you in uniform, stay on mission, be vigilant, take care of your people. Mind the unifying chain of command. Especially those of you in the 45th Space Wing, remember, everything that you are doing today is establishing the standards and the practices for tomorrow. So I encourage you to serve this nation, as you have throughout your careers, with excellence and with integrity, as I know most certainly you will. Which brings me to the very special announcement today, and the reason why I just had to stop after I got off of that airplane to have a word with each and every one of you. At this time, I'd like to ask the Space Force Honor Guard to step forward onto the platform and be prepared for the unveiling. So it is my great honor, as your Vice President, as Chairman of the National Space Council, on behalf of President Donald Trump, to announce that Cape Canaveral Air Force Station will now become Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And just down the road, I'm also pleased to announce an Air Force base named for another pioneering general who actually founded the Army Air Corps. As of today, at the direction of the Commander-in-Chief, Patrick Air Force Base will become Patrick Space Force Base. Today we make history with the first two installations in the history of the United States Space Force to bear the name of this new branch of the service. It is a great day for our military, it is a great day for Florida, and it is a great day for America. So to all of you gathered here today in the uniform of the United States, to all of you looking on from this great community, it's been my honor to be with you for this brief moment. It's just one more milestone in a journey that we began. We began a little bit more than a year ago with the establishment of the Space Force. And I'm just absolutely convinced, looking out at all of your bright, shining faces, that with your continued courage and leadership, with the extraordinary leadership that joins me here for this momentous occasion, with the vision and the leadership of our Commander-in-Chief and support of all of those in Congress who have endorsed this vision of this branch of the service, and with what I'm confident is the prayers and the support of the American people, that we will continue to defend this nation from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and Patrick Space Force Base for generations to come, and we will defend America from these places here on Earth as well as in the vast expanse of space. So help us God. So I thank you all for the honor of being able to join you today and the distinguished guests who you've also heard from. And I would just say to all of you serving here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, at Patrick Space Force Base, thank you for your service. Keep making America safe and secure. Keep making all of us proud. And to all the men and women of the United States Space Force, Semper Supra. And God bless America.